Hello and welcome to another Hollywood Experience.
Another
I'm
one.
Adrian Paul. Yep, and that was David Bethke who kind of jumped into the background there this week.
Yes.
And this week we're going to be a little different because we're going to be talking to Jay McCabe, who actually helped us in the very first Warwick sword experience and who has a company called Dress to Kill, or works for a company called Dress to Kill in the UK. And they are the guys that you see in the Knights and in the armor who beat the hell out of each other at these tournament events at different castles. Now, they're located at Warwick Castle.
Okay.
And Jay has a very kind of colourful background, and I've worked a couple of times with Jay. Once was at last year's Sword Experience event in, I call it Belvoir, but it's not pronounced like that in English. I'm like, what is that called? Anyway, and then the Warwick Castle event, which was one of our first English events that we did in 2017. So Jay's very well versed with the sword experience. He also took part in the Slash of the Day videos. All those guys in armor and that was Jay and his guys. So I wanted to chat with him to see where he's at. So let's just get right to it because I don't want to waste the time. Hello, good morning, Jay. How are you? Well, actually, good evening, because you're in England and we're in the States, which is still, I think, 8 hours difference. So what time is it there now? It's 42 here. I think about 7:42.
Yeah, so we're on 7:42 over here.
So you got into daylight savings time.
We have, yes,
Yeah.
Fresh last week, so it's just always dark now.
Now I know that you're in Coventry, which is up in the Midlands, close to Warwick Castle, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm probably about 10 miles north of Warwick Castle.
In beautiful English weather.
Yeah, it's beautiful here right now. I mean, it's about everything as beautiful as an imagination could be for English weather. It's grey. You can't see where the sky starts and the ground begins because of the wet ground as well.
Oh, lovely! It's actually the type of weather. I always joke about this. I say, people are like, oh, it's cold. I said, yeah, but in England, you see a little bit of sun, a little bit of sky, everybody's out in shorts.
It gives you a little bit of hope.
Exactly. So now we started off in Warwick back in 2017. I met you when we did a sword experience at Warwick Castle, and we were referred to you because you had a company called Dress to Kill, and we had a great time there, and we had the trebuchet that shot off that day. We'll talk a little bit about that event in a minute, but I want to first of all get people acquainted with Dress to Kill and what you do, which is live events at Warwick Castle, right?
Yeah, so we're fortunate enough to work with the company Dress to Kill. So the owner of Dress to Kill is a blacksmith by trade. So he makes and manufactures armor, 15th century armor mostly, which is a bit later, Tudor as well. The big heavy plate stuff. And because of that, we do fighting knights shows with a bit of Georgian, 18th century stuff as well. Going around the country, fortunately, Warwick Castle is our home. We're at Warwick Castle 95% of the time, but we also are lucky enough to work with places like English Heritage and the National Trust over here, which are big historical companies which are dedicated to keeping English history alive, really, and looking after the castles and things.
So what do you do? Do you go to different castles and put on different events?
Yeah, so we're at Warwick Castle, like I say, most of the time, but then over the summer holidays and things, then we get contracted out to go to different places like castles all around the country. I mean, there's been times where we've gone from the very most northern tip of England, a beautiful place called Northumberland, right the way down to Devon and Cornwall, within a matter of days. Lots of traveling, but it's a lot of fun. So we managed to span the whole of the country, fortunately.
So tell me a little bit about what you do when you go to one of these events, because I know you do certain stuff at Warwick, and we'll talk about that, but I know you when you go to these different castles, what type of event do you put on?
Well, yeah, we have two different types of show. We have our Warwick Quarry show, which is a small 2 or 3 person show, which is all about dispelling the myths that you get or that we see regularly in TV and films, and this idea, swords ain't heavy and all of those things that people just assume is right, which is very fun, all with tongue in cheek. Very important to me to have as much fun as we can, and we find that an audience will be a lot more on your side if they're laughing as well at the same time. And then we have our flagship show, which is the Knights Tournament, where there's 4 knights, 4 squires, a compere and a marshal, so about 10 of us and we do pretty much an event on the hour, a 20-minute event every hour throughout the day between 10 and 5 with a small break in the middle so we can actually have a bit of water and some food.
So, I mean, it really is a whole day event for you, right? And you do this in full armor.
Yeah, so we start off as in doing archery when we do a night's tournament. We do a few different types, but then we go into sword fighting, and then we go into some competitive stuff. So we do what we call Battle of the Barriers. It's two knights in full armor fighting across a fence, if you imagine. So they can't get too close to each other, they can't get too far away from each other, with pole hammered weapons, and we're literally just trying to each other's blocks off, as they say over in England. And then we go from that to Crest Melee, where we're trying to knock a crest off each other's helmets, again with these big 6-foot pole hammered weapons, before finishing up in what we call the Grand Melee, where all the knights and the squires will all fight at the same time. So just imagine 4 separate teams running into the middle of an arena and trying to beat each other with big padded maces.
So hold on a second.
Lots
so
of fun.
the maces, basically you're talking about the pole arms. How long are they? How heavy are they?
So a typical pole arm would be 5.5, 6 foot. Sometimes you can get them a little bit shorter. Obviously, the shorter they get, the faster you can move them around. The longer they are, the more force you get out of the end because of the force. So yeah, they wouldn't be that big. You kind of imagine the weight of a normal hammer, I suppose. A regular hammer, like a ball peen hammer or something that you'll use at home, just on the end of a massive stick. So to look at a specifically historically accurate one, they look like the head's too small because of the long stick that are attached to the pole that they're attached to. Whereas obviously you imagine that same hammer, like the one that you might use to put up pictures in your home, swinging on the end of a 6-foot stick is going to do an incredible amount of damage to somebody.
So you have armor that is made. Where is your armor made?
And so it's made for our company. So it's made through Dress to Kill, and it's made in a workshop in Northampton, which again is just out of the Midlands. And yeah, it's made by literally 2 guys. So Mark, the owner of the company, and a man called Colin. And I've seen them work magic. A sheet of metal goes in, and a beautiful harness of armor comes out the other side somehow. I mean, it's magic to me.
How much does it weigh? Does it? I mean, obviously a suit of armor can weigh, depending on what it is, a variety of things. But how much does that armor actually weigh?
Well, there's lots of different styles of armor. The type of armor that I have, I can actually give you a pretty or an exact number for you, because probably about 18 months ago now, myself and my colleague, we did a charity event. We decided to go zip lining across a stadium to raise some money for a local hospice. In armor.
Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah. Because I don't do anything by half. And what we decided to do is do it in full harness. But of course, because you're on a zip line and you're going to be a good 50, 60, 70 feet in the air, there is, and quite rightly so, weight restriction of 18.5 stone. Now, I'm not a big guy by any amount, but that doesn't give me an awful lot to work with, Adrian. So what we decided to do was get into our armour and test exactly how much it weighs. We've always had an approximate amount that we've always told people, because, again, every harness of armour is different. But we wanted the exact amount so we could figure out how much we could wear for the zip line. So what we decided to do is get dressed at Warwick Castle, walk out through the gates, up into the town, and into a place called Boots, which is a local pharmacy with a pretty decent scale. So we went, stood on there, and weighed ourselves.
Oh, you must have
came out.
You must have had some really interesting looks walking down the high street with in suits of armor. Did you get any comments?
You would think so.
People just kind of go, "Oh well, they're from the castle."
Do you know, we're in Britain, and it's just people look and mumble under their breath, and then kind of go past. With 1 or 2 people actually saying something, but people, especially in Warwick, it's very typically British, as you quite imagine from the stereotype of kind of it's a lot easier to just ignore something like that rather than actually say something for
address it. Yeah.
So we actually managed to get into Boots and weighed ourselves, and it came out at what we would say is 5 stone 9 pounds. which I think is about what?
Is that how much the armor weighed?
£80.
That's
That's
about
how
£80.
much the armor weighed.
That's how much.
Yeah, so you're in it, but that's how much the armor weighed.
Okay. So here we go. Here's the next thing. You said the top thing was 18.5 stone, which is 259 pounds. Now you got 80 pounds. You got to take that. So you got to weigh. You have to weigh less than what, like 170 pounds.
Yeah, no, I wish. Maybe in my youth, Adrian, but yeah, not so much anymore. So what we ended up doing for the zip line is strategically taking pieces up. So we went without the leg harness. Pretty much, we did top harness and stripped away, so we didn't have what we call our back plate, so the piece of armor on our back, and that pretty much took us. I mean, we were on the money, and yeah,
right
a
on the
little
money.
bit.
You were pushing the envelope.
We were 18.6, and it was one of the moments where the people running it kind of were like, hey, yeah, this is all on you.